A to the K.
To the K.
To the K.
Hello, welcome to the A to the K Wrestling Show, where A2theKania is running wild, brother. We are here to do WrestleMania Rewind, so...
Not just any WrestleMania Rewind, Carl. The most interactive WrestleMania Rewind in the social media world. Probably.
I like that. You should be in marketing, I think. But you're right. We, obviously, if you follow us on Instagram, we brought back our tournament bracket for A2theKania 2.
We love a good Tony.
Yeah, we do. And we asked you to decide the greatest WrestleMania match of all time. So let's look briefly at the bracket, shall we? I mean, you've seen who won, of course, but some absolute behemoth matches on here, Anthony. Hulk Hogan
Some
versus
really
Andre going out in the first round.
Actually,
there was a few shocks. So obviously Hogan Andre was up against Taker Shawn 2 in the first round, and obviously Hogan Andre went out, so that was a bit of a shock.
It went up against a hell of a match, though, didn't it? I mean, Hogan Andre as a iconic moment there, but come on, Taker Shawn, come on.
Well, there is that. But I mean, I just think WrestleMania 3 wasn't feeling the love, because we also had Randy Savage versus Ricky Steamboat. It was neck and neck. We had to be the decision makers on this one, because it was a 50-50 split in round one up against Triple H, Shawn Michaels and Benoit. So
I'm starting to think this might display the sort of average age of our audience as well, WrestleMania 3 not getting the love. It's interesting.
Yeah, I think you might be onto something with that.
That being said, we've had numerous conversations where people talk to us about the classics, so we know that we've got some old school wrestling fans there.
We certainly do. I think we started to, as we got into the later stages, we started to see the likes of Bret versus Owen, obviously take the win over Rock versus Cena, for example, which was quite surprising.
Again,
we started to see a lot more kind of things like that. TLC went quite a decent way in this as well, which I think is fair. I don't think that gets the love that it deserves.
It does deserve a lot more love than it gets, to be fair. Iconic, really. Well,
absolutely. But we ended up, Anthony, with the final four being Taker and Shawn 2 against Taker and Shawn 1. So that was quite a tough one to put. Basically choose one. What was better, the first or the second?
And that is a tough choice. I love both of them. In all fairness.
I know. They're both great. Obviously, the first one ended up winning that side of the bracket, and then on the right side we had Rock versus Hogan and Bret versus Austin, and this was a lot closer, but Bret Austin won that, and then that was the final. Bret versus Austin, Taker versus Shawn 1, 2 phenomenal matches. And
you know what? I have a lot of love for that. I was actually expecting to get to the final four.
Go on.
Rock Austin.
Yeah, actually.
I think it was a really good match. Obviously, Austin's last match, I believe. Kind of. Has he had any comeback since then?
No, that was his. No? That was his final one.
Just double checking. Some people don't stay retired. Shawn. But yeah, I don't know. I don't know. Maybe I'm a bit sort of nostalgic for that as well. That's what retired him. But they execute that match so well. And I very recently watched the match again with Austin sort of talking about it as it was going on, if that makes sense, like his sort of commentary on it, I suppose, which just you got to hear about the little nuances and some of the work they did together and stuff, and it's like I seem to have a lot of love for that match recently, especially, and I'm surprised it didn't make it to the final four, Carl.
Well, to be fair, it made it into the quarterfinals where Rock Austin 2 went up against Rock Austin 3. And obviously the second one, which is Mania 17, where Austin turned heel, got the win, but then it got eliminated by Bret Austin. So
see, that's I probably should have been clear, because they have fought on more than one occasion, and I just went, Rock Austin, you'll know which one.
The good one. But yeah, so hell of a bracket, and again, thanks to everybody who took part and voted in that. Obviously, we appreciate it.
We love a good Tony, and we love a bit of participation. So
yes, we do. Ticked all the boxes. And the winner was crowned, Anthony, as Undertaker versus Shawn Michaels Numero uno, WrestleMania 25.
Before we talk about it, I want to know something, Carl.
Go on.
This is what the audience picked. Was this your pick?
So my pick was going to be Bret versus Austin. I think anybody who has watched or listened to this show knows my love for that match. I even suggested it to Lady Bird, obviously Lady Bird Monroe. If you haven't caught that interview yet, we think she's a super bright up and comer that is going to have a really big future. So we started chatting about matches with her, and that was one of the matches we suggested that she take a look at. Especially if she wants to turn heel in the future. I think just the fact that it execute, obviously the match itself was phenomenal, but it was so rare, and I don't know any other time it's been executed this well to do that double turn of Bret and Austin. And I think the way they did it was a monumental thing. So for me, that one just edged Taker versus Shawn a little bit for me. But having said that, the purpose of this, for us to do this kind of retro review for WrestleMania Rewind, is to rewatch the match again. So obviously, having watched Taker versus Shawn 1, it is so good that it's probably on par, to be fair. But yeah, originally I was like, it should have been Austin versus Bret. But curious, how about yourself?
Well, I'm not just saying this, Carl. It'll feel a little bit like I am, but it was always going to be a Taker Shawn match for me, and I do think this was probably the better one. Like, it's hard because they were both incredible, but I think this probably was the better one, especially because of I think the theme was a little better this time.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
I wasn't overly this sounds horrible. I wasn't overly invested in Shawn being retired on the second one. I'm like, good. I don't.
That's what I was going to say. It's weird that I was proper rooting for taking the second one. Actually, couldn't think.
But like the stakes on the line didn't. Like I have no other way of putting it without sounding like a slightly horrible bastard. I didn't really care about the stakes on the line. I'm like, I didn't. Taker needed to win, obviously, right? And I'd have been probably gutted if he didn't win. That might have had an impact on this whole decision. But Shawn being like, I'll retire, is like, cool, do it. I still want Taker to win. I don't care.
Yeah, like, no, perfect. It's a
so.
Yeah, it's a fair point. I prefer Shawn Taker 1 to Shawn Taker 2, to be fair. So I agree with the audience in that sense. I think it's the much better match. But obviously, the first one took place at WrestleMania 25. So 25 years of Mania with just 8 matches on the card. And to be honest, I kind of, obviously watching the match yesterday, I didn't watch the whole thing, but I kind of skimmed through it after watching this match, and it wasn't the best Mania by quite a mile, to be fair. You'd think like the 25th anniversary edition would be awesome, but some pretty bad things on there. So briefly, before we get into the Shawn Taker match, we had the Women's Battle Royal, which was won by Santina. So that was dead good.
Yeah, that's gone down in the history books as a fucking poor decision.
Yeah, we had JBL's 22-second retirement match where he dropped the IC title to Rey Mysterio in 22 seconds. We had the relatively underwhelming title matches of Triple H Orton, which was like okay, and Cena defeating Edge and Big Show to win the World Heavyweight Championship as well. So bit bland. However, we did get Matt Hardy versus Jeff Hardy, so obviously that was quite a good match. We had Jericho taking on it was a 3-on-1 taking on Roddy Piper, Jimmy Snuka, and Ricky the Dragon Steamboat.
You can't argue that's a match you'll not see again.
Exactly.
That's crazy,
exactly. And we also had obviously the Money in the Bank as well. But
back when the Money in the Bank was on Mania and fun.
Exactly. But this match, Anthony, was of course something else. Completely the absolute jewel of the whole WrestleMania card, and according to the crown jewel, and according to our fans who voted on Instagram, the absolute crown jewel in all the WrestleManias. So, without further ado, let us kick off talking about this match. So, from a build-up standpoint, right now, this is something that I didn't really realise at the time, right? So, we know Shawn Michaels lost his smile for a bit, and then he he was forced to retire, back issues and all, and he came back out of nowhere in 2002. And since his return in 2002, he'd pretty much been a Raw guy for his whole whole time. While obviously Taker, synonymous with SmackDown. So
Certainly was.
they've done a pretty good job of kind of keeping them separated on separate shows. But what's even more impressive is in the 20-odd years that they've both been in the company, this was just the 4th singles match that they've ever had.
That is crazy, that, to be fair.
Which I never, ever realised. And even more crazy is that Undertaker's never beaten Shawn in a one-on-one match. So I'm actually surprised, with hindsight, they didn't make more of that at the time.
Yeah. That's a
because
fair
obviously,
point. It is a fair point.
Shawn coming into it was like, oh, I want to defeat the streak. He could have gone like, you've never beaten me one-on-one and stuff. And from my recollection, he didn't do any of that. So, surprising.
But I think the theme probably did a lot to that. Like, because they were going for the good versus evil element. That I think that probably influenced a lot of why they didn't do the whole "you've never beaten me" and that kind of stuff, And obviously the second time around they couldn't because he had kicked his ass.
Yeah, no, that's a fair shout. I think obviously you touched then on the theme and side of things, and I think obviously that played these two had such an interesting parallel, really. So obviously we've got the revelation that they've never really faced each other in their whole career, just a handful of times. But obviously we've got Shawn as Mr. WrestleMania. We've got Taker, obviously having the streak, never been beaten at WrestleMania. So obviously such a good pairing in that sense. Both veterans, both from Texas, both love a good cowboy hat. But then, as you said, the themes of kind of light and dark came through, especially in the entrances. So,
yeah.
Do you want to talk a bit about obviously those entrances and how that kind of set the stage for the match almost?
Well, I've always found it rather interesting that one had found God and was godly, and it showed in the entrance, but is actually a bit of an asshole, and one was demonic, and it showed in the entrance and is actually an awesome guy. Not naming any names, but I hate it. Honestly, I think it's fair to say neither of us are big fans of Shawn, right? He's a bit of an arrogant cock at times, let's be honest, right? But you can't deny the theme of this and how well it came across. So we had Shawn sort of descending and it all sort of bathed in the white light in the parallel to the Undertaker, and that sort of like that good versus evil element of it. And they had touched on it like in the build up to the match before the entrances. They touched on like they had like Undertaker's tactics not really working for Shawn. Do you know what I mean? Like Shawn knew the Undertaker, knew him well enough that Undertaker couldn't do his usual intimidation, showing up behind him and stuff like that. Shawn knew it was coming, kind of thing, which I thought was always a nice touch. But yeah, like the whole sort of honestly, in other circumstances, you could go, that's a bit much, but it works so well with the Undertaker match. We had Shawn sort of descending from the heavens in all white with his sort of white cowboy hat, so he's essentially the exact like negative of Undertaker, which was brilliant. And then similarly, the Undertaker then has the whole rising from hell in his obviously usual garb, but obviously that parallels perfectly as well. But what's quite interesting with it all as well is, despite the fact that Shawn, and this isn't just our personal perspective, this is legitimately how the audience felt, despite the fact that Shawn was the godly character in this scenario, Undertaker was pretty much the face here.
Yeah.
Like, certainly for us, but I honestly, I think we get the vibes from, there will have been people who were rooting for Shawn, but the audience were mostly behind Taker here, because nobody wants to see the streak end. So it is interesting really that he despite the themes, and I don't know if you technically say in this scenario there was a heel and a face, but there was. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
There was.
I mean, there definitely was for me, because...
the reason I say that is it's not like Shawn was playing your traditional heel and working the audience in that sense, but he was definitely not the face in this match, No,
1,000,000%. I think, it was such a strong kind of contrast between the two in so many ways, but those entrances really just kind of, it just got you so pumped, didn't it? It was just like, God, this really is like good versus evil, although, as you just said, it was good versus evil, except the good was the bad and the bad was
so good. But yeah, I think it was a really perfect parallel, and I love the way they execute that. And this is what makes me go, this was thematically better than the second match, and it was always going to be, wasn't it? The sequel's never as good.
No, Unless it's Terminator 2, but
that's the exception to the rule.
That's just the exception. So we move then obviously into the match itself, and I've seen a lot of wrestling matches in my time, Anthony. This was wrestling psychology at its finest. I think you'll agree. I think the whole story made sense. It was very much, as well as the good versus evil, kind of light versus dark thing as well. You've also got kind of power versus speed, essentially. So you've got Shawn, trying to use his advantages of kind of being quick and getting some quick attacks in and then getting out of the way, kind of thing, and take Taker when he can pin him down, using his kind of powerful move set to basically take him out. So really good psychology at play. I think things like you mentioned that there's no kind of real heels and stuff like that, but Shawn was still doing kind of slightly heel tactics in this. So faking a knee injury, just to try and get the advantage, because ultimately he's not really the wily vet, because let's be honest, they're both being there forever, but he was kind of doing these things to take doing anything he could to get any slight advantage to try and ultimately break the streak.
He was the underdog in a lot of senses, wasn't he? Because they were very equal in a lot of ways. Like you say, they're both veterans of the industry. They both know what they're doing. But Undertaker had the power edge on him. And like you say, Shawn did have the speed edge, but you can't just rely on the speed. So you have to find a way of taking him down. And like you say, that leads to your sort of tactical heel-like moves.
Yeah, I mean, like there was a point in there where, obviously, after that absolutely insane dive to the outside that Taker did, where the cameraman did not catch him, by the way, literally head first onto the floor. But after that, like, even Shawn gets back in the ring, throws the referee back in, and tries to get count out the Undertaker. Imagine if the streak ended on a count out. Like, holy shit, the fans did not like that one bit. So yeah, definitely heel kind of bits coming through, but.
Yeah, I think when I mentioned it before, he wasn't deliberately working the audience in the build-up, I suppose. But like you say, there was definitely heel work being done in the actual in-ring psychology, to be fair.
Yeah, no, 1,000,000%. So I really enjoyed all that kind of thing. And obviously, even like, we talk about parallels, even just simple stuff, like for every like sit-up that the Undertaker did, there was a kip-up from Michaels or vice versa. And it was so like beautifully told, I guess, in terms of how very different but how very similar these two really were, and how I think the running theme throughout all of this was just the parallel of them and their careers, essentially. So I think you had that aspect, and then correct me if I'm wrong, I can't remember many WrestleMania matches before this where that kind of finisher spam of like false finishes was a thing. Like for me, this was one of the first ones. Maybe like Rock Austin might have done it. I was going to
say you may have had a previous, or I'll be honest, Cena was in the scene at this point, so you might have had a couple of Cena moments like that as well.
Yeah, possibly. But it certainly wasn't as overdone as it is today at that time. No. So, and it's like, for me, and this is what is so sad when you look back at. I think I messaged you on WhatsApp about it when I was watching it, but it's like the thing that stands out when you watch older matches is just how into it the fans are. And I know it's WrestleMania, so it's a whole different type of fan. Like, these are the hardcore, like, I have to be at WrestleMania to see this kind of thing. But my God, the fans were so into this with every false finish and stuff
honestly,
like that.
It makes you realise just how much enthusiasm seems to have gone. Like, there's audiences there now that aren't anywhere near as sort of hyped or driven as these guys. Like you say, the audience were here for this. They were proper here for this match.
Yeah, they were so invested, and it's like, even for us, obviously we already knew the outcome of this, but like even watching this live, like we knew the Undertaker streak would never end. I mean, look how that turned out. But we were so adamant, like, oh, it's never going to end. He's going to retire. But at the same time, you're on the edge of your seat, going, oh my God, his streak is going to be over now. Honestly, hindsight's a wonderful thing, because we know the shock that we had when Brock broke it, but we just never thought it was going to be a thing, and yet we were that invested.
There was moments that, like you say, you knew it went, but then you go, it is Mr. WrestleMania. Like you say, you got that nickname for a reason. If anyone's going to do it, it probably would be Shawn. And this match is getting a little scary now. Like, there were times you think, oh shit, this is going to be it. And honestly, I've said this to you a few times, but I wouldn't have actually been like massively upset if it was on this match.
No, I think you said that before when we've discussed this. I think if anyone was going to break the streak, you probably would rather it be Michaels, wouldn't you?
Yeah, I think it was more deserved. I think that, like, again, watching this back for this segment makes me say that again. Like, I'm nothing against Brock, but this was more deserved. Like, if anyone deserved to win the match and take the streak, it was this match right here. Like, the Brock thing was good shock value, but what did it do really? Like, I think we've had this argument before, because I think you, correct me if I'm wrong, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but you've argued that it did do good things for Brock.
Yeah, I think it did. I think because obviously Shawn Michaels effectively, I know he came back for the Saudi match, but he retired after the second Taker match, so that was him done. Whereas Brock, after he beat the streak, that set him up as the main guy for the rest, is the rest of his tenure, basically. Whether he was there full time or part time or what, but like ever since then, he has just been like God tier level, hasn't he? Where when he came back for that match, I think I said to you, I just kind of slept on him to think, there's no way Brock's gonna beat the streak. They haven't even built it up or anything like that. It's just going to be like a quick win for Taker, which is why it was so shocking at the time. So yeah, it definitely elevated him to.
It's a fair point. I mean, I think that's probably what I struggle with, because I find it easy to look at Brock as like a big deal now because that's how he's treated. But this is probably what put him in that S tier, if you will.
Yeah.
Which is easy to forget, I suppose. But I always put the argument here, and I know we've had this discussion in the past, that Brock would have got there anyway, but by what mechanism? It is a fair point,
Yeah, I think to your point on this as well, like it would have made a lot of sense as well, and it would have been very poetic if it had been Michaels to be the one who did end the streak here. But yeah, I'm glad it wasn't. But that's just because I don't like Shawn Michaels. But anyway,
I don't like Michaels.
But yeah, I think you can definitely say as well. So obviously there was a lot of finisher spams and stuff like that, and a lot of near falls. But Shawn was very protected in this. If you think about it, he kicked out of like 2 tombstones or last rides. A fucking Hell's Gate. He managed to get that. Taker literally threw everything at him. And Shawn kicked out of all of it, to be fair. So
and again, that's what put you on that point of going, shit, is Shawn going to do this?
Yeah, like I can't remember what it was. There was a point towards the end where it was like he somehow managed to kick out of a tombstone or something, and it was like, oh, no way. And then just out of nowhere, he hit a fucking sweet chin music, and all the fans just went, fuck. Like, everyone just like collectively went, he's going to lose the streak. And it was so surreal to see like all the fans just in unison just go, oof. Like,
I love it. I love it. Like, this is what you miss now with finishes being overdone, because that, like you say, because finishes weren't being spammed anywhere near as much at that time. When he hit that, you go, oh shit, because that's usually at the end of it.
Yeah.
Whereas now, I don't think you get a super kick done and people go, well, he's not kicking out. Like,
exactly.
It's just expected, isn't it? You always kick out of the first 3 finishes.
Yeah, it's such a shame, isn't it? Because it has gone that way now, where it. Unfortunately, if you just do a match where one finisher puts someone out, it's like, oh, is that it? Well, he beats him pretty easily. It's like taking someone's finish is it's not what it once was. Let's say.
No. I love that there's still a few protected ones, like the curb stomp and even the RKO to a degree, where instead of like hitting it and then not getting the pin, they tend to more do he went for it and it didn't get it. Do you know what I mean? Like, we had that a few times with they were trying to do it with McIntyre. I feel like they may have dropped the ball with McIntyre's Claymore a little bit, but they did that with McIntyre's Claymore a few times, didn't they, where he just was not able to hit the Claymore. It wasn't that he hit it and it didn't work. And I prefer it when they protect the finisher like that, and you go, he's just not been able to get to his finisher, which is fair.
Yeah, defo. But yeah, I think, to be honest, maybe the reason that we're in this kind of finisher spam position that we're in now is a result of how good this match was and how much people loved it, to the point where that's just kind of where naturally the progression went. You tend to imitate the things you like, don't you? So
yeah, that's a fair point. That is a fair point. I never looked at it that way.
You bunch of jerks, look what you did. But no, I kid. So yeah, obviously Sean kicked out of a lot of things in this, so he was very protected. What I also thought was interesting is, so there was only 8 matches on the card, and this went on match number 6 of 8, I believe. But it was actually the longest match of the card, but only rocked up around 30 minutes. So,
it's honestly, like, I don't know how you feel about this, but I would have been tempted to put this as the main event, right?
Yeah.
Also, because doing that would have made people think, shit, the streak's ending, even more so.
Well, exactly.
So it would have been fun for that. But
I certainly didn't envy, Cena and Edge and Big Show going on after these.
No, that's the thing.
And then,
and it's for a title as well. Like, when your title match is the less big deal on the card, that's crazy, isn't it, really?
Well, that's it, and you can tell. And I don't know. I don't want to shit on Triple H and Orton, but you can tell by the end of the show when it's on to the final match, which is them two, like the wind's kind of gone out of the fans because how do you?
Because everyone's climaxed and now we're having to sit through all that.
Well, exactly, yeah. Like just want to have a sleep after that. It was so good. But yeah, legit. You can see it. So it's a shame for the ones who had to follow it, but yeah, just such a good match. Was there anything that jumped out, to you particularly that that we haven't covered in terms of the actual match itself before we get onto the finish?
To be fair, I think it's been quite a fair talk on the match as a whole. Like, there's no particular standout moments, I don't suppose, that we haven't already mentioned. And I think, as you say, at the time it was quite a unique take on the finishes, and yeah, I don't think there's much else I can add to that really. But
no, okay.
Other than that, these two, it just, again, without like moaning about Sean, well, commending Sean, as I like, we're not big fans of Sean, right? But you can't deny that he's fucking good, isn't he? I want him to not be. I really want him to not be. But he is fucking good, isn't he? To be fair.
It's annoying, isn't it? Because like you kind of I think we obviously message about stuff like that. As we're watching it and things like that, and everyone know I don't like Shawn Michaels. I'm a Bret guy. I can't let it go. I know Bret's let it go. I can't let it go. He's just.
I know it happened to Bret and he let it go. But I will never.
But I will never let it go. I just think he's a little snake. So I don't like the guy. Yeah. But it's a shame because obviously he's so good, and like this match proves it. I really honestly wish I liked the guy, but.
This for me though, like I caught most of Sean's career in the later years, if you know what I mean. So I sort of got it from his comeback. So I've seen bits from way back when, but I started with wrestling after Sean came back. You know what I mean? Yeah. So I didn't, and I'm not saying like he was more stale, but I didn't see a great deal of like fantastic in-ring work from him. So I think this match is one of them when it goes down, you go, he's actually really fucking good in the ring. Like most of what I got was like DX is back and we're going to be goofy and tell jokes and stuff, which is fun. It's great, but like this just showed that like he was a really talented guy for all his flaws.
No, definitely. I mean, you don't get the moniker Mr. WrestleMania for nothing, do you? So fair play to him. He featured on a lot of the matches in that bracket. So and obviously deserving winner overall. But the thing that I wanted to touch on just finally about the match was the finish itself. So I was a big fan of the finish. Something similar happened earlier in the match where Sean does that thing. I think they've now called it like skinning the cat, haven't they? Where he goes over the rope and then he manages to kind of backflip himself back in, I guess is the right way to go about it. But he obviously does that and ends up getting like in the tombstone position and gets tombstone. So I thought that was fantastic. But then for him to then, the actual finish of the match, try a moonsault off the turnbuckle and get caught and go the same way. I just thought that they were two very creative ways to, wind up in the tombstone position and end up getting pinned essentially because. It's very easy to just pick someone up and go, oh, he's going to get a tombstone now. But it almost felt like
actually incredibly hard to do a tombstone out of nowhere. So
exactly
on that.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. Like we talk about these finishes of like the RKO or the Claymore or something that you can just hit out of nowhere. It's like shock value. like, how do you do that with a tombstone where it's very much, pick him up on the shoulder, get in position, and they found a way to do it, and that added to it, because it was just like, you weren't expecting it, and it was like, oh shit, he's in the his tombstone.
Especially the moonsault, because you're expecting Shawn to hit that, and then just turned around on him, which again unexpected for a tombstone as well. So
yeah, definitely. So
beautiful, fucking
I just
beautiful.
think great psychology throughout the whole thing. Great kind of creativity in terms of what they pulled together as well. I loved it. It's a very, very, very good match, and it might be the best WrestleMania match of all time. Obviously, it's the one that was voted for.
That now.
One that was voted for by you guys. So that's definitely definitely is, I guess. But yeah, really, really good
I'll
match.
do the cheesy YouTuber thing now. I'll say, did we talk about your reason why you think this is your favorite Mania match? Did we hit that particular moment that made you love this? If not, tell us in the comments. We'd love to know what makes this your favorite match.
I just realised I just started pointing at my junk. But
we got 2 words for you. But no, honestly, if there's a moment that made this your favorite Mania match and we haven't covered that, I'd love to know. I'd love to know what it is. So obviously we like a good discussion about it. It's genuinely one of my favourite matches, and I dare say my favourite Mania match. I'd actually agree with the bracket. But it was a particular moment that you're like, that's it. That was the moment that this was the match for me. Let us know. Fascinated.
Absolutely. So that was it. Shawn ends up losing. Taker is the winner. Streak still intact. Shawn goes away for a bit, comes back, does some DXy things for the rest of the year before he decides, you know what, I'm going to end the streak. I'm going to put my career on the line. And then, as we know, the rest was history. They have another match, which isn't as good as this one, as you guys voted. And
I must admit, I did like the fact that Shawn, they had to have a rematch because Shawn couldn't live with the fact he couldn't finish him. Like, he had the tools, as far as he was concerned, he had the tools to do it and couldn't do it, and he had to go back and do it. I kind of like that, but it just wasn't as good thematically as the first.
No. And it was a good match, and obviously the stakes were higher the second one, but it couldn't top the first, unfortunately. But it's just annoying that obviously Triple H had to then go and do the same thing for the next 2 years as well, didn't he? Just out of nowhere.
Because he's trying to avenge his buddy.
Yeah, and then the final time he avenging his buddy in a cell.
Yeah. You don't go to hell in a cell, do you? Crazy.
Exactly. So thanks again for taking part in the tournament bracket. We do appreciate it. We'll probably try and do some more just cool things like this for segments going forward. I think instead of making it just an annual kind of A2theK type tradition. I know we do the prediction series and stuff like that anyway, so there's always a lot to get involved in. But I think whether we do something for like a what if episode, or whether we do some other kind of tournament type thing. In fact, what would you like to see? Again, let us know, either on socials or in the comments of this. But yeah, another fun-filled week. A2theK running wild. Got some more exciting things in store. Don't forget about our competition as well. You can win yourself a WWE t-shirt of your choice. And we're going to be launching something pretty cool in the next day or two called Mania Memories. #Mania Memories. Where you've got to let us know what some of your favourite Mania memories are, and you can win WrestleMania on us. So stay tuned for that.
Do it.
So until next time, thanks again. Another fun-filled week. If you've not checked out the Ringside Report, go and check that out now. We've got a lot of news over there about the likes of the Hall of Fame, Cody Rhodes, etc. And obviously This Week in Wrestling, where we give our take on the big shows over the past week. So, another fun-filled week, and we will play a little advertisement for the upcoming convention for the Love of Wrestling, which takes place in April in Liverpool this year. So we'll play that shortly. If you haven't already, follow us on all the places, and watch us, listen to us. We're everywhere.
True.
That's what we do. So until next time, goodbye.
For Love of Wrestling, Europe's largest wrestling convention, returns to the Exhibition Centre in Liverpool on the 23rd and 24th of April. Guests this year include Diva of the Decade, Trish Stratus, the Wrestling God, JBL, the Dudley Boys, Torrie Wilson, and just announced MJF from AEW. We will also be doing a Wyatt family reunion as we welcome Eric Rowan, the man formerly known as Braun Strowman, and indeed the Fiend Bray Wyatt. Also just announced is the man, the legend, the icon, Sting. And of course, your Olympic gold medalist, Kurt Angle. This and many, many, many more guests, as well as prop builds, Q&As with all of the wrestlers, and some of the biggest wrestling collections in the world on display from our exhibitors. Get your tickets at forloveofwrestling.co.uk or search Facebook or Twitter for the Love of Wrestling. For the Love of Wrestling, Europe's biggest wrestling convention, returns to Liverpool the 23rd and the 24th of April.
Hey everybody, this is Thunder Rosa and you're watching or listening A to the K. A to the K. A to the K. A to the K.